The first thing anyone noticed was how empty the diner felt at closing time, and how she was always still there when everyone else had gone. Under the harsh fluorescent lights, with chairs stacked upside down on tables and the smell of old coffee clinging to the air, she wiped crumbs from tabletops as if erasing herself inch by inch. Her shoulders were slightly hunched, her movements careful, almost apologetic, like she was afraid of making noise in a world that had already decided not to listen. No one knew her story. Most people never asked. She was just the woman cleaning tables alone, night after night, until one ordinary evening, a single father asked her something so simple and so unexpected that it quietly cracked open a future she never believed she was allowed to have. If you believe in kindness and second chances, this is the moment to pause and show some love to the channel. Like the video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe, because stories like this remind us that small moments can change everything. Her name was Elena, though hardly anyone at the diner ever used it. To customers, she was a blur of movement, a polite nod, a refill of water, a rag sliding across Formica. To the manager, she was dependable and invisible, the kind of worker you only noticed when something went wrong, which she made sure never happened. She worked the evening shift because it paid a little more and because nights were easier to survive than mornings. Mornings reminded her too much of everything she had lost. Nights, at least, let her hide inside routine. Wipe, stack, sweep, repeat. It gave her hands something to do so her mind would not wander to places that still hurt. Elena had once imagined a different life. Years ago, before things unraveled, she believed in simple dreams, a small apartment with light through the windows, a steady job that felt like more than survival, laughter that did not feel borrowed. But life had other plans. A relationship that started with promises ended with fear. Love slowly turned into control, then into silence, then into bruises she learned to hide under long sleeves and excuses. Leaving had taken everything she had. When she finally walked away, she left with one suitcase, a few $100s, and a heart so exhausted it felt older than her body. The diner became her refuge by accident. It was open late, the manager did not ask too many questions, and the work was straightforward. Show up, do your job, go home. Home for Elena was a rented room in a crumbling building near the highway where the walls were thin and the neighbors did not ask names. She told herself it was temporary. She told herself a lot of things to keep going. But months turned into years and survival quietly replaced hope. Most nights were the same. Truck drivers passing through, couples too tired to talk, college kids counting change, and then there was him. He started coming in on Tuesdays, always around the same time, always with a small boy who looked no older than 5. The man carried exhaustion the way some people carried confidence. It showed in the slump of his shoulders, the faint shadows under his eyes, the careful way he watched his son even while reading the menu. The boy was bright-eyed and curious, tracing patterns on the table with his fingers, smiling at strangers without knowing how rare that was. Elena noticed them because they stayed a little longer than most, and because the man always cleaned up after his son before leaving, stacking plates, wiping spilled syrup with napkins he brought from home. There was something gentle about that care, something that tugged at a part of her she kept tightly guarded. Still, she never spoke more than necessary. She did her job, she stayed invisible. On one particular night, rain hammered against the windows, turning the outside world into streaks of gray. Business was slow. The cook had already left. Chairs were going up one by one. Elena moved between tables, her reflection distorted in the glass. The man and his son were still there, the boy now half asleep, his head resting against his father's arm. The man looked up as Elena passed, hesitating like he was weighing something. When he finally spoke, it was not to order or complain. He simply asked if she was doing okay, in the most genuine way she had heard in years. Not the polite version people used automatically, but a question that waited for an honest answer. Elena froze, cloth in hand, caught off guard by how much it unsettled her. No one ever asked her that, not really. She almost brushed it off, almost offered the usual, "Fine, thanks." But something in his eyes, something tired and kind and familiar, made her pause. She nodded, instead, a small, uncertain gesture. He thanked her for working so late, for keeping the place clean, for being patient with his son. Then he asked the question that would change everything. He asked if she had ever thought about doing something else, something she actually wanted, instead of just surviving. The words hit her harder than she expected. She felt them settle in her chest, heavy and warm at the same time. For a moment, the diner faded, and she was standing at the edge of a memory of herself, younger and hopeful, before fear taught her to aim lower. She did not answer him. She could not. But she carried that question home with her, through the rain, up the narrow stairs to her rented room, and into the sleepless night that followed. In the days that came after, Elena found herself replaying that moment again and again. The question refused to let go. What did she want? The answer scared her, because wanting meant risking disappointment. Wanting meant believing in a future again. She had learned to live without that. It was safer. But something had shifted, subtle as a hairline crack, impossible to ignore once it existed. The man returned the next Tuesday, and the Tuesday after that. He never pushed, never pried. Sometimes he brought a small extra tip, folded carefully. Sometimes he just smiled and nodded, like they shared a quiet understanding. Elena began to notice things about him, too. The way he read parenting articles on his phone. The way he listened to his son's endless stories with genuine attention. The way loneliness hovered around him, unspoken but present. She learned from the manager that his wife had passed away a few years earlier, that he was raising his son alone while working construction during the day. Life had not been kind to him either. Slowly, without realizing it, Elena started to change. She stood a little straighter. She looked people in the eye more often. She allowed herself small moments of pride in her work instead of shame. One afternoon, on a rare day off, she dug an old notebook out of her suitcase. Inside were sketches she had drawn years ago, back when she dreamed of becoming a designer, of creating things that made people feel something. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. The talent was still there, buried but alive. The diner did not transform overnight, and neither did Elena's life. There were setbacks, nights when exhaustion won, moments when fear whispered that she was foolish to hope. But the question lingered, steady and patient. What if surviving was not enough anymore? Weeks later, on another rainy night, the man stayed after his son fell asleep in the booth. He watched Elena clean, the same way he always did, but this time there was a different weight to the silence. When she finished, he told her about a community center near his neighborhood that offered evening classes, free ones, art, design, practical skills. He said he had noticed the way she doodled on order pads during slow hours, the careful lines, the focus in her eyes. He asked if she had ever considered taking a class there, just to see. Elena felt something inside her give way, like a door she had kept locked finally creaking open. She thanked him, her voice barely steady. That night she cried in her room, not from pain, but from the overwhelming relief of being seen, truly seen. Someone had noticed her not as a worker, not as a survivor, but as a person with unrealized potential. Taking that first step was terrifying. Walking into the community center felt like stepping into another world, one filled with possibility and the risk of failure. Elena signed up for a design basics course, telling herself it was just temporary, just to try. But each class lit something brighter inside her. She stayed up late practicing, balancing her diner shifts with homework, exhaustion mixing with excitement in equal measure. The single dad continued to show up on Tuesdays. Sometimes they talked briefly about classes, about his son starting school, about the small victories and daily struggles that came with rebuilding a life. There was no rush, no grand declarations, just two people, bruised by life, finding quiet strength in mutual respect and understanding. Months passed. Elena's work began to stand out. One of her instructors helped her apply for an internship at a small local studio. When she got the email offering her the position, she sat on the edge of her bed and laughed until she cried. It was not a fairy tale ending. The pay was modest, the hours were long, but it was hers, a step forward that felt earned. The night she gave notice at the diner, she cleaned the tables with the same care she always had, but her heart felt lighter. When the man came in with his son, she told him the news. The boy clapped without fully understanding why. The man smiled, pride softening his tired features. Elena realized then that sometimes the most profound changes start not with grand gestures, but with one honest question asked at the right moment. As her last shift ended, Elena stood in the empty diner, taking in the hum of the lights, the smell of coffee, the quiet that once felt so heavy. This place had been her shelter during the darkest chapter of her life. It had taught her endurance, but it was time to move on. Before this story ends, take a moment and comment below. Share what part of Elena's journey resonated with you, or tell us about a time a small act of kindness changed your life. Your words might be the encouragement someone else needs today. Life did not suddenly become perfect. There were still hard days, doubts, and moments when the past tried to pull her back. But Elena was no longer cleaning tables alone in the same way. She carried with her the knowledge that she was worthy of more than survival. She had learned that healing did not always come from dramatic rescues, but from quiet human connection, from being asked a simple question that reminded her she still mattered. If this story touched your heart, if it made you believe even a little more in kindness and second chances, please like the video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps keep stories like this alive, reaching people who might still be cleaning tables alone, waiting for the moment everything begins to change.